All right, all right, all right. Welcome, everybody. My name is 12 Gauge. Welcome to my channel. This is your first time here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come and check out a channel and the information that I present on it. If you've been here before, thank you for continuing to come and check out my channel and give it a chance to not only give you educational things, but also discuss true crime, discuss addiction, discuss mental health, and discuss a lot of different things in different various ways. Everything that I speak on here is pretty much research material. For some reason that it is found unfounded, I'm not above being wrong. So if you ever find something that I discuss or that it's not correct, or it might be missing certain information, feel free to leave it in the comment. Just don't be rude. And also, if you come into the chat, make sure that you treat each other with respect because everybody's opinion is valid. Just because you don't believe that something could be a certain way does not mean that it couldn't. So treat each other with respect and try to be classy. Everybody's opinion is valid, and we agree to disagree. So if you're here in the chat, make sure you say hello as you're coming on in. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the presentation, and subscribe if you're new to the channel and you haven't subscribed yet. Just give me a chance and check out my library because I have plenty of videos. Well, tonight I'm gonna take you through Wahi Park. I'm gonna show some videos that illustrate the park and give you an understanding of more about the park and the alibi that was given by Mr. Koberger. I'm also going to discuss tire impressions, shoe impressions, and give you the outlining as how those things are done and created. So thank you all for being here. Let's get going with this and try to enjoy the ride, okay? So let's start with the Wahi Park. And I've done this in another video, but I did it on Google Maps. So I was able to just kind of zoom through the park and show you the map view. But this is a different view that I found online. And I want to show you guys. There's two different ones. So we'll start with the first one. It's kind of at dusk. So you'll be able to see. And I want to be able to comment on this due to fair use and give Overnight Adventures vlog the respect that they deserve by making this video. I'm merely just commenting on it. So let's go ahead and get started. Like I said, if you're here, let me know you're here. Say hello. If you don't feel like talking, give me the state where you're listening from or the city in which you're listening from. You don't have to give me both because I'm not trying to dox anybody. So say good evening and we'll get started. Here we go.
All right, so we are here at the Wahi County Park and Campground. I think that's what it's called. I don't even know where I'm at. Isn't that fun? Anyway, taking a walk through the campground. There's a few sites. I don't know exactly how many. About 9 spots, it looks like. They all have a place for your tent to go right there. Nice little pad. fire pit, a picnic table. Well, there's running water there. That's always convenient. A couple of garbage bins. About every other site or so, there's a garbage bin. Trail leads up to the bathroom here. There's a creek right over there, up against the road. From what I can hear, and yeah, so we're gonna spend the night here. We have some company this evening, so we're trying to get some videos in before she arrives. I don't know why, just because, something to do. Rain just passed over, so that was kind of exciting. We'll see if the inside of the tent's wet when we get back. Hopefully it's not. That would kind of suck. Well, it looks like this is a little day use area here. So I don't think you can camp in that spot, but it'd be a great little place to have a picnic, which would be nice. What else is going on here? There's a little bay. That's the Snake River over there. That little bay you can probably fish and swim in. I've seen people swimming in there before. I believe there's a fishing or a swimming beach up here as well. A lot of work they're doing on the park as far as trees go. I don't know what the structure is. I'll have to do some research. Probably a house or something at one point in time. Who knows? Somebody knows. We'll look it up. Find out. We're going to quit talking for a little while. Just enjoy the walk. All right, so we have a cool little thing about wetlands. That's kind of neat. I guess this is a wetland. You can see the catstails in there. That's kind of cool. And you also see beer bottles from fucking people who can't pick up the shit. Lazy bitches. If you're gonna drink, be responsible, right? Anyway, continue walking up through the park. It does look like it's dog friendly, but you've got to leash your pet, so I don't know how friendly that is, but you can have it here. So that's better than some places I've been where you can't even have a dog.
So let me pause it right here for a second. Like it gives you a different perspective when somebody is actually walking around and you can see clarity. You can see the camera view. You can see how clear it is. Obviously, he's walking on a trail. In the water, the Snake River is right next to him. So if Brian's alibi was he likes to go to this park to stargaze, to hike, to run. So let's use your analytical mind right here based on what you're seeing. Would this be an appropriate area to do that? You let me know in the chat. Would this be, based on what you're seeing, an appropriate area to hike, to possibly run on these trails, or maybe sit under one of these pavilions and look over the water, and once it gets dark, look at the stars? Let me know what you think in the chat.
There's that. Looks like we're coming up on the picnic area. I don't really see a beach for swimming in here. So I've seen people swimming in there. Apparently they weren't worried about the beach. And yes, this is the Wahi County Park. We'll walk the interpretive trail real quick.
So obviously he's on a trail right now.
Wait for our friend to arrive. All right, nice sheltered area for having a group get together. A couple fire pits in here. Wow,
Man, that's a nice fire pit. Nice fire pit right there.
Not often you see a water station and 3 fire pits. Nice. There is garbage in the sink because someone's
That's awesome, Randy.
Garbage can 20 feet away, but we can't make it there. Oh my God, too far to walk. Anyway, I guess there is a little beach here where you can strike out into the water, should that be your choice, like the little ducks there. Um, water may be stagnant. That sounds refreshing. I think we'll skip going for a dip. Plus, it's only like 40 degrees out, so yeah, definitely skipping that. Oh, see, there's a snow up on the hillside there. That's what I got rained on. All right, so let's just continue on upwards here. Looks like they've been doing a lot of tree maintenance. They got firewood, it looks like. That's cool. Should see if they have wood for sale.
Hey Jeff, how you doing?
That's a nice little bench.
Want to come up?
It's a picnic table there that you can sit at, eat, be sheltered. They got some pretty decent spacing on those gazebos, so you could have a bit of privacy time to yourself. Nice view from here.
So I got two of you in chat that says, of course, this would be a popular area to hike, stargaze, or to just do some running. I'm going to show you another video that kind of outlined the top of the lake where the road is that I outlined in one of my other videos. But this gives you more of a perspective once you're down by the water, once you're around those pavilions with the fire pits and everything. It kind of gives you a different perspective. So if you park and you walk down here, you're able to obviously do whatever you want at that point. Look, there's a lot of wood that's cut. I don't even know when this was filmed or anything, but this individual was able to get a very clear descriptive area of the WAWAWAI Park. So let's keep going.
Let's see. Maybe we'll save going on the interpretive trail for when our friend is here. She might want to explore this as well. It's a fairly decent sized park. Oh, the trail goes down there. Okay. Neat tree roots. Fresh snow in the hills. That's good. Need snow in the mountains.
What do y'all think about the scenery? It's amazing, isn't it? It looks like almost late fall, early winter. What do y'all think in the chat?
All right, that was a steep hill. All right. So we're at the trailhead for the interpretive trail. We'll do this later. But that's good to know. Lots of garbage cans here, which is really good. No reason people can't take care of their garbage.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Maybe late fall,
I
early
don't know if you can hear those voices.
winter.
The Pullman or the WSU rowing team, they're out there on the river, way out there. And that's what I'm hearing. Their voices coming across the valley. It's pretty peaceful and quiet today. As I mentioned, it's below 40, so not a lot of people out. Kind of nice.
Below 40.
It's not a very flat park by any stretch of the imagination. I'm sure the camera flattens it out pretty good, but yeah, as you look around here, not a lot of flatness. So if you're going to play football or something, this may not be the park for you. But if you just want to come have a picnic, some friends, family, be under a gazebo, have some water to go look at and play in, pretty good park for that. Different kind of tree. Anyway, I'm not a tree expert, so we're not even going to try to guess what that is. Watch my step on the moss and the wet leaves. Don't need to go ass over tea kettle. All right, and here's the second bathroom. There's one bathroom just above the campground for people to use. And then there appears to be one inside the park as well, which actually is a really well thought out park. Got everything you need. The bathroom seemed pretty nice as well. It is kind of a vault toilet with running water inside, so it's not the best of all worlds, but it's not the worst either.
Well, here in Texas, we have those as well. I mean, we have parks like this, but it looks like this area, this restroom area or whatever, it could have some shower capacities in there because of the venting and stuff of that nature. Um, I don't know, but I'm just kind of guessing. This is a very good organized park. It looks like it looks very clean. You don't see a lot of trash. You don't see a lot of homeless people. You don't see a lot of things that you normally would see at some other inner city parks.
And there's actually enough where you can segregate. Let's see if there's light inside. See if we can go inside of the bathroom and see what's actually in there. Well, it appears to be open on the leaves. So there's just a couple stalls and a sink. Anyone here? No. Okay. I assume that the women's has the same, a couple stalls and a sink.
Yeah, I guess I was wrong. There is no
I
shower.
don't think that comes out in the video either, so sorry about that if it was a really bad shot. It is what it is, right? Anyway. But
Welcome, Jeff.
be quiet.
How you doing, 10 plus 2?
Enjoy the view.
You know, one thing I noticed about this guy walking is he's heavy footed. Do y'all hear that? Remember the other day I was talking about heavy walking people? Um, and you could just say, oh, 12 gauge, you're just picking right now. But do you hear the footsteps? They're loud. I mean, not everybody walks that heavy. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah. Play it a little more. I hadn't really noticed it, but I mean, I was hearing it right when you paused it. I think
Yeah.
you're right. I know Riley Strain. They were kind of talking about how heavy-footed he was that night on those videos.
Let me back it up a little bit where he's coming down the.
Now I don't know if it could be partially. What's the opposite of an incline? A decline. I
A
guess he's on a.
decline,
He
yeah.
could be on a declining hill, and maybe I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
Well, that asphalt wouldn't give it that acoustic, I wouldn't think, unless, you were really putting your feet down
Yeah.
pretty heavy. But I noticed it has a lot of inclines, a lot of cardio type environment.
He could be wearing high heels.
I doubt that. I doubt that.
I'm
But
just kidding.
welcome to the panel, Jeff. Chat, do y'all know Jeff H? You
Hey,
do?
everybody.
Just
I
give Jeff
recognize all these names here.
a
Andy,
howdy.
Paula, Aquarius. Aquarius is related to you, right? Or am I mixing that up with somebody
No,
else?
no, that's somebody else.
Okay.
Rondi says, I hear them wearing boots. Yeah, I mean it could very well be some boots, we just never know. And like I said, I'm gonna play another video that I found. And before I play this one, Jeff, I noticed that you commented on that video. You asked if he saw any video cameras or security cameras.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just about to say that right now that yeah, when I watched that video, I guess I was kind of watching it with the purpose of trying to see if there were any cameras and just to see if maybe there's any chance anything was captured on the cameras. But then kind of looking at it also is like is it trying to be an investigator here of some sort. Is it
Right.
possible that somebody like, Koberger looks for a place that he's checked out that clearly has no cameras? So that would be the place. Yeah, that's where I was. I mean, everybody's always saying, well, if he's a criminology smart guy, why would he go into a place where there's clearly cameras, in that neighborhood? So, I mean, it seems like it'd be fair game to say, would he be looking at this park, asking the question, are there any cameras at all here?
Well, I would go on the other side of it to say I would be looking for cameras if this was going to be my alibi. I would be
Right.
hoping there'd be cameras, because if this is my alibi, hell, what better way to prove your alibi than to be seen on a camera?
Right, and I
So,
would think too. Most know that the cameras aren't going to hold these footage forever.
right,
So you'd want to be turning it over and getting into it early, not later.
right,
Now, if let's say I had a feeling I was seen on a camera in that park with somebody that wasn't my wife, then I might be inclined to say, I'll check that camera out in about 3 months, you know,
exactly,
because
exactly.
the motivation would be to hope that there still is no footage.
Hey, Susan, welcome back. Welcome back. Um, this one is a different perspective because, like, I did a video, like I stated like three times already. Um, and it is the view from the road. What we just saw was the view from the park. So we were able to see a lot closer to the water than what Google Maps shows you. And I thought that, being able to see closer to the water and actually see the hiking trail and things of that nature gave you a different perspective than this does. And this has kind of a whiny background music to it. So I'm going to mute it and you're just going to kind of enjoy the ride. It says Pullman to Clarkston via Wahi Road. So there's a part one on YouTube if you want to go check it out. I chose this one because it's already in the park. The other one, I guess, driving to the park through the park. So let's check this out. And then if you want to go back to the other one that we just saw, just let me know. Oh, Daniel from Drunk Turkeys here. Hey, Daniel.
Daniel, how you doing, man?
He says, "Hey, everyone. The problem with that perspective is it's not at 4 a.m. on a cloudy, icy night. There seemed to be moisture in that video. At night, that would be ice, of course. Very good eye. Very good eye, Daniel." And
Yeah, wasn't
Susan
the
says,
weather report for that night ice, fog, cloudy,
yes,
or overcast? I think is what I
yes,
saw.
ice and fog. It would be great if we could get some kind of park video on a night where it's kind of cloudy and overcast. That would be amazing. I haven't been able to find one. It says now if he was looking for a quiet, secluded place away from his apartment to smoke some marijuana.
Hmm.
You just never know. And I had speculated a little bit on that myself. So let's take this ride for a little bit because it goes from Pullman to Clarkston and it goes along the water. So
You
let's
want a little driving music to go along with it? I've got a
um
guitar here.
no, I mean if you want to play a little bit, that's fine. I mean it's
How about
probably
just as a
best.
joke? Just as a joke,
Yeah.
the first thing that comes to mind when you see somebody getting on the road, do you recognize this?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Get your motor running.
Yeah. Well, let's watch this a little bit, and I did mute it because the music on here is terrible. So, but they did a
The
awesome
visual
camera view.
aspect is good.
Yeah. So I'm gonna mute that. Daniel
Oh, Daniel,
said,
I didn't. I remember you asked me for my email, but I don't think I ever saw any email from you. Let me go check.
"Does that Windy app go back that far in date?" I don't know. Somebody was showing me that Windy app earlier today. I don't know if it was Jeff or somebody else. But as you can see this view, look at the mountains on both sides, and it's right next to the Snake River. So, I mean, if he indeed did go down this route, there's multiple areas he could have thrown the knife, he could have thrown the evidence that he took with him and things of that nature if he indeed is the guy. You know, as you know, on my channel, I lean in the middle until I get more information, even though I have publicly stated that, at times I have felt that he was the guy and that he did have the capability to do this. But just looking at this perspective, it kind of gives you that insight. If it was nightfall or early morning, would he have his phone on? Would he have his phone off? That's a question that I would like answered. Is it habit with him to go everywhere with that phone off? You know, it does have a year-round caretaker. Okay, thank you for that, Paula. Paula, can you go at 4 a.m. in the morning and take a video? Kind of walk through the park with some mace or something to protect yourself, and something of that nature.
I
Maybe.
guess you don't ever really know when you're going to need a good alibi. Um, but I know me. I'm always taking pictures with my phone, whether it be a receipt from somewhere or just something cool that I see on the road that I'm driving along. It seems to me like it would be easy for me to have an alibi. I can say where I was, when I was, and it's such a beautiful area out at what how does it how is it pronounced? Wawawai
Yeah,
Wawawai
Wahi or something like that. Wawahi.
Wawawai
Yeah, something. I don't
State
know. I
Park.
call it. I call it WWW Park.
but but doesn't it seem that you would just need a couple photos that you snap from your phone that have timestamps, and boom, you're good to go.
Daniel says BK took photos too in November, just not on the night of the murders. Is odd to me.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, everything. Everything looks sus, especially when you're going, okay, why didn't he take pictures on the night of the murders? How come on that night, if that is indeed correct, um, how come he didn't do that? How come he wasn't able to share photos that night? And if he is able to show photos on that night that we haven't been told about or shown, man, that's something in his corner for sure. So, looking at this visual right now as we're going down this roadway, it looks like the sun is back behind the mountains a little bit. It doesn't look like high noon or anything. Would I be correct in that aspect, Jeff?
Mhm. Well, I mean, I can see the shadow on that cloud in the center. So it looks like the sun is rather low. About it's the sun is about as low as that cloud is. So it's
Right.
I would think. So I think it's a
And Paula, you're fairly local. I don't know how the weather is in that area because I know here in Texas I used to live in East Texas. That's over there by Texarkana and Tyler in that area. But every day around 3 to 5, we'd have a sun shower, like every day. So that I don't know if it's the same thing in Washington. The humidity is so high that there would be a shower every day or daily or a lot of cloud cover. Can you answer that a little bit if you're still in here?
12 gauge. You ought to invite Daniel up. I mean, I think after what I've seen recently, he could use a to be on panel of a friendly YouTube channel, don't you think? He
Hey
was put
Daniel,
through
are
the
you
ringer.
game? Are you game coming up? I will set the link if you are. I mean, I'd love to have you up here to give some discussion. We're always game for added discussion. Sarge
I
says,
see Sergeant Friday here too. Yeah.
notice how barren it is, no light, nothing but land and road, which would enhance the view of the night sky like a magnifying glass. Yeah, indeed.
We were just talking about the weather though that night.
Yeah, I mean, because
Speculating on that.
what I did read, I mean, I did look up the weather on a weather website, and it did say overcast, cloudy, and cold, with like 32 or something of that nature in that area. Daniel, there's the link if you'd like to come up, brother. I'm not gonna bombard you with questions, and I'll let you answer. So Paula says only like 1/4 moon, so without flashlights you couldn't see a foot in front of you. Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know. Um,
Yeah, I remember once
because
we went on a hike with from my son's elementary school. We went on a hike. They took away all the flashlights from all the kids before
mhm.
we went on the hike because I remember that they were teaching the kids that if you get hit in the eyes with a bright light, it takes about 24 minutes before the irises or pupils of your eyes fully open back up again, or I guess dilated, I guess,
Oh
where
wow.
you've got great night vision. So they take the flashlights away from the kids because they know they're going to shine them in each other's faces. So the only one with the light is the guide, and he's got a red light on his head, like a headlamp, because the red light doesn't have that effect on your irises, your pupils. Um, so I found that interesting. So you get into your night vision, and it's amazing what you can see. And they would also pass out like those wintergreen lifesavers to the kids, because if you crunch the lifesavers and you got night vision and it's that dark, you can actually see like the lights as you crunch from the
Oh
whatever the
wow,
crystals that are the
that's
sugar
pretty
crystals.
cool.
Yeah, I mean it was cool as an adult. The kids thought it was very cool. Everybody was like, "Look at my mouth! Look at my mouth!" And then they'd start crunching, and you see the little lights flickering in their
Hey
mouth.
Paula, I have a question for you as well. How far is Clarkston from Pullman on this road? Is it fairly close, or is it pretty far off? I mean, is it reachable within an allotted amount of time if you didn't know the road? I mean, because imagine driving this road in the dark. I don't have the greatest night vision. That's when I usually wear my glasses. So if I've driven someplace the very first time, I'd be going a lot slower than this because I'd be terrified that I'd end up in that water. That's how my
Right.
vision is. So I don't know about you guys if you still have the blessing of having 2020, you know, but you just let me know what you think on that. I mean, Jeff, you have any thought on that? Like as far as driving on a road you've never been on? Hey
Yeah,
Daniel,
yeah. Hey,
welcome.
Daniel, how you doing,
Yeah.
man?
Good, good. How about you guys?
Good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
Okay, Twizzle says 27 miles, 33 minutes according to Google Maps. Okay, so that's what would that be about? 20, 23 minutes in a car?
Well,
Mm,
kind of how fast you're
Somewhere
going.
around there. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
Um, it was also icy that night, so it might be a little bit longer if you're driving, safely. I don't know if the roads are windy. If those are, then that also could play a role in how somebody would drive there.
yeah,
I know
I
on
mean,
roads
I
like
don't
that, I
go
would
ahead, Jeff.
definitely want to have my phone on, using the GPS to alert me to whether the road is going to start turning to the left or to the right, just so I can be, ready. Because if you can't see much and you think it's going to the right, but it's actually going to the left, like you said, yeah, you can end up in the water.
Yeah, I don't know how much you heard, Daniel, but I was telling the chat that at nighttime I gotta wear my glasses because especially on a road that I've never been down before, or even a road that is familiar. I could easily end up in that water, bro, really quickly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have 20/20 vision yourself, or you still have that youth about you. So you've been
Oh,
blessed.
I'm probably a little bit older than I look, but the eyesight it's bad with glasses. It's all right. When I wear my contacts, I'm good.
Yeah,
When I was younger, my night eyesight was amazing, but since I haven't worked at night for a long time, uh,
yeah,
yeah, I despise driving at night.
okay. And Paula said, depends on the time of year. I had asked her if it was very humid over there, and she says not very humid usually. So
Well,
that,
this was November. This was fall, so it was just after. I understand it's probably a lot colder in the fall up there than it is down here in Texas,
yeah,
but I would assume that fall and spring in that area are relatively similar as far as temperature wise goes, and so I would assume there would be probably more humidity during that time versus in the actual winter. But I could be wrong. I don't know.
so I'm curious what your thoughts are on the alibi, Daniel. Do you believe that the alibi is legit, or do you have a difference of opinion? And it's okay in this channel if you do. I'm not gonna. I'm not a person that demands one way or the other. I'm pretty in the middle.
Yeah.
On my thought pattern, I'm very rational and analytical when it comes to thinking on things. So, can you
Right.
tell me can you tell me what you believe as far as the alibi? Do you believe in it, or do you think there's something wrong with it?
Well, I don't think we've heard it yet. The only thing that they've told us was that he was basically the same thing that the PCA said. According to his phone records puts him south and southwest of Moscow, and that's what the PCA says. The problem is, it's not when his phone is on where he's at; it's where he's at when his phone is off or not connected to the network, where it becomes an issue. Now, as far as him saying WAWAWAI Park, he merely brings up that he was there that night, but he doesn't bring up a specific time that he went out there. He doesn't say that he was there specifically at 4 a.m. or 3:20 or any of those things. In fact, the only argument that they have is that there is a vehicle captured on Floyd Cannabis dispensary camera at probably around 3, maybe 2:55. And the reason why I say that is it's supposedly capturing the alleged driving into Moscow. And their way I assume it's being portrayed is that he's seen leaving towards SR 270, and police are assuming that he went towards Moscow at that point. And if the Floyd Cannabis shop is on the way to Moscow, then we can assume that it's probably somewhere around between 2:55 and 3 o'clock when that vehicle was passing there. So his argument right now isn't that he was on that road at that specific time at 3, not that he wasn't the vehicle on the King Road neighborhood between 3:20 and 4:30, which is why the state's response was, we want to know, we already know where you were at before and after those times. We have your phone records too. But we want to know is where you were during the specific time of the murders. And they put basically a 10-minute window on both sides. They say, we want to know where you were at 4 a.m. to 4:30. That's 10 minutes approximately before the murder started and about 10 minutes after the murders ended. And I want to know where he's at that point too. And if their
All right.
argument is that he wasn't the Floyd Cannabis shop, then to me, that argument wouldn't there wouldn't you wouldn't need to make that argument if you had some kind of documentation or proof where he was at 4 o'clock. Like that argument would be pointless if you knew if he took a picture somewhere or if he did any of those things at 4 o'clock or at 3:45 or 4:20, 4:10, even at 4:30, and he's somewhere else other than the King Road residence where it is impossible for him to get from that location uh, to that address there in time or whatever the case may be. That's not in there. They're not arguing that. They're arguing the 3 o'clock one. So that tells me
Okay.
that even his own defense team doesn't have the information between 3 and 4:30.
So it's going to be an interesting way to determine one way or the other. There's a lot to be deciphered, obviously, between now and the trial. But that's a very interesting take on that, Daniel. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. I appreciate you asking and letting me finish it.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of felt bad for you, bro. I watched that earlier, and I was like, man, how is and not to talk bad about anybody else when they're not here, but I was just wondering how anybody would want a quick answer on the draw like that. I mean, usually if you want a quick answer on the draw, you already have your mind made up. So,
Well, I mean, I wasn't allowed to explain myself. And then I said, all right, would you rather me ask questions? And I wasn't allowed to do that either. And so I was basically just there to be yelled at. So I wasn't going to take that. I don't know who he thinks he is, but that's not who I am. I'm not the prosecution. I'm not the person who arrested Brian Koberger. I understand that some people have certain feelings about certain things, but I'm not the guy that did that. So you don't have to yell at me for it.
Right.
It's just a difference of opinion.
You're in a good environment here, bro. We don't do that here. We don't have any of that stuff going on. I'm pretty level-headed, and I keep things under control pretty much.
Yes, sir.
I've lost my cool a little bit over some things, but I've came back and apologized to it.
Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with getting emotional or any of those things, but because I've gone on other programs where there was a difference of an opinion, and we may have gotten a little bit electric, so to speak. But there was a allowance of people to speak their opinion, and at the end of the day, also, I had talking to those people a couple of times, so there was some sort of familiarity with them. And this guy, I really don't even know who he is, and so it's like, dude, I don't know who you are, and you think you're gonna talk to me, and I'm just gonna be like, all right, cool, let's just yell at each other. Man, it's not gonna fly.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I totally get you. Now we've totally changed terrain. I mean, I think they made a right turn on the bridge, and they're almost to Clarkston in my estimate of this video when I watched it. So as you can tell, there's no more water on the right-hand side. It's mostly how it looks like where I live,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's very isolated, and the only difference between Texas and here obviously is these huge ass mountains off to the left. I mean, we have them too, but it's just not a ridge like this. Somebody was asking, do you believe that there's cell towers out there? And if there is, either one of you wanna jump in on that? What you would believe?
I'll let you answer that one, Jeff, first.
Yeah, I'm no cell tower expert. I wouldn't even pretend to be. Yeah, I don't know. Even if there are cell towers, I don't know with is it the kind of thing that you can be standing in one spot and not move at all, and then at one particular moment in time you got signal, not move at all, and then another moment in time you've got no signal. I don't know what if weather plays a part. The direction your phone is. I don't know. Like I said, I'm no expert on the towers and stuff, but I do feel like you've got the prosecution has their story and the defense has their story, and each side has their experts. It seems like it's going to be a little tennis match between the experts, and but it sure does seem to me like everything you say, Daniel, is just so common sense, and like it just like I don't understand why if you thought if you're looking for an alibi, if you've been accused of a quadruple murder, you'd think that your alibi and getting cleared of this, it would come quickly. For something to come this late in time, I don't know, it just does feel like okay, this is about the right amount of time where all these cameras would be cleared of any footage from around November 12th. So there won't be anything there. But if you want something to be there because you're innocent, you'd want to be sure that all happened prior to it getting.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second, Jeff. I want to ask a couple people in the chat a question. The locals, Paula, you and Twizzle, I believe that you are local, local enough. Is there, have you noticed that there's any cameras on this road, like, um, camera that would have captured any kind of footage anytime during that time frame, during that month, during beforehand? Are y'all familiar with this road enough to be able to say yes, there's camera that I've seen, or is those businesses that we've noticed on the right hand side, would they have cameras? I'm just asking because I believe that you are close enough that y'all were talking about it. So he says on my vid was paused. I've been moving the whole time.
But
Been moving,
it,
audio was
it,
work.
one question I would have is does WSU have an agricultural department or something of that nature that has something outdoors where they would go out there and put cameras themselves, maybe perhaps trail cams, things of that nature out in the National Wild Park, some sort of experiment or any of those type of things? I think that that's a possibility. I mean, even maybe perhaps hunters or any of those type of things. I mean, he also said that he was in the area near WAWAWAI Park. I don't think that actually specifically said that he went into the park. And so, um, I, to me, like Jeff said, the I would have wanted to put that information out there and said, hey, you know what? There's a bunch of cyber sleuths out there that can find these things. They find these cameras. They find all these things. They located Gabby Petito's van in a national park, in the middle of nowhere. So if they could do that, why not put it out there with all these thousands of people who are fighting for his innocence, that are willing to, and some of them have the capabilities of going out there and finding the evidence that could prove his innocence. Why not put it out earlier, to hold it up to this point? And to be honest with you, like I said before, he hasn't really given his alibi. Now, would you find it suspicious if he added more to his alibi now that the defense has given him all of the documents and stuff that, like I've always said, I'm for one that believe that the defense should have given everything to Brian Koberger. I also think that Brian Koberger should have given the prosecution the alibi, and I think that those should have been done in the order in which the law required them to be done way back when, which was Brian Koberger's alibi first, and then the evidence. That way, one couldn't be fabricated. So now that we know that that's the reasoning why that law exists, would it be suspicious to you if he came up with more alibi, given now that he knows some more of the evidence?
Right. I
I
agree
know
with
too.
you on that. Go ahead, Jeff.
When I've taken my I don't know, it's because ever since I've gotten into true crime stuff, but when I take my dog for a walk and we go down a path that I've never been, it's kind of in the woods. I know I've personally find myself taking pictures just in case I meet up with somebody in there and I don't come out, alive. I know it's morbid to think that, but thinking about like these cases, like they the footage or the cell phone information is so critical in helping either solve it or figure out what happened. And so if I'm thinking that, I can't imagine somebody who's got a criminology background is just, driving out in the middle of nowhere, or if he did go however deep he went into a WAWAWAI Park, I would think, I don't know, wouldn't that cross a person's mind at all?
I mean, maybe. I mean, I don't fault him. Like if there could be people that go out there and turn their phones off and do those type of things. I just find it odd that also while he's doing that, there's another vehicle that matches the description of his vehicle, and in that vehicle is a person that matches his height and weight. That vehicle also doesn't have a front license plate, and inside that vehicle is Brian Koberger's DNA, all happening at the exact same time on an icy, cold November night in the northern eastern portion of the northern western part of the world. Or the United States. So I find those things to be odd and suspicious. And as far as what Twizzle says, the alibi needed the cast info to prove his alibi. Would his alibi have changed if the cast info came back differently? I don't think it makes a difference what the alibi or what the cast information would have come back if he's telling the truth. It would have the cast information would have then corroborated what he said. He doesn't need the corroborating evidence before saying what he said. Typically, you get you get what you say, then you get the corroborating evidence. It's not the other way around. And that's why I find it extremely suspicious. Like, unless you intend on having your alibi changing or your story changing, why does it need to be determined on what the evidence is against you? You should be able to say that before even seeing that, if it's truthful.
Right. Especially if you look forward to being exonerated. I mean, you'd think you'd go with, great enthusiasm to that. I liked what you said, odd, and when you said the moment you said odd and suspicious, I mean, I feel like I see a list of odd and suspicious, whether it's where you put your trash, whether you put it in your own cans, your neighbor's cans, you're separating out trash, you know, in the kitchen. There just seems to be a lot of odd and suspicious, and if they don't have the right guy, it's almost like he was trying to pretend to be the right guy, maybe by coincidence. I don't know. Of course, I'm just joking. I'm not. He would pretend to be the right guy, but just how much coincidence can there be?
No, I get it.
Well, you know, Jeff, we're known as the Guilters, so we might as well start a rock group called the Guilters.
The
I don't
Guilters,
know.
I think that's a good.
Yeah.
That'd be a good band name.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think we've reached the end of the road here because it's about to shut off. So
Yeah.
this shows 13th Street. So I guess they're in Clarkston right here. So that was an interesting video, I thought. Didn't y'all think that? You know, to give you a perspective, even if it is just driving on a road. I mean, I've never been there, so I've always been curious as to what it looked like. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Both of them, both. You know, I've never been in that park, so I was kind of curious to see exactly what the framework of it all. You know, what kind of parks they have in that's Washington, right? Pullman area. So compared to Texas, you know, we go above and beyond. You know, everything is bigger in Texas. So you know, we would have had statues and all, you know, flowers and all kinds of stuff. So you know, I wanted to see the difference, and I thought it was pretty interesting to be able to show that.
You know,
Um,
he was caught on a license plate reader in Colorado, right? Do they have anything like that in the Pullman, Washington area or Moscow, Idaho area?
I
So
don't believe so, or they would have possibly mentioned it. Don't you think, Daniel?
No, I don't think they would have mentioned that necessarily. Yeah, I think a lot of the issues I think that come across, or the confusion comes across, is that a lot of folks think that if it's not in the PCA, it didn't happen, or if it's not something that we don't know about, it didn't happen. And you know, I think that the stuff that's in the PCA, like honestly, I mean, this is the way every officer I've ever known has been trained. You keep that as vague as possible. Now, 19 pages, and that is vague, tells you there's a lot. That's usually a result of a lot of information and a lot of evidence. It's usually not a result of a small amount of information, right? So, you know, I don't think that everything's going to be in there. If, you know, for instance, let's look at the cameras. We know that they have him on camera in Moscow at 326, allegedly, behind the police department, and then heading straight towards the King Road residence, and then circling around a few times, and then leaving at 420. So it doesn't necessarily say that that's all of the footage. In fact, it says of numerous amount of footage. It also specifies that that we now know that there was at least another camera that was used in by the Floyd Cannabis Dispensary, and so that wasn't in the PCA. And I would assume that that would have been information that they would have known around the time of his arrest. And that's the other thing as well. We only know up until the point on that PCA to his arrest. Everything else is, you know, you got to have to read between the lines when it comes to all the search warrants and things of that nature that have been accumulated since, to kind of determine the path that the police department and the investigators have gone in determining that this guy is their person.
Right. And a lot of times, you know, it baffles me at times when individuals believe that police is so inept when they're gathering evidence against somebody. They believe that, you know, everything is suspicious at times, and, you know, the planting of the sheath, that is just so foolish to me to even, you know, if you believe that, that's your belief. Like I said, we believe in here what we believe, but my belief would be that's a foolish thought that all the agencies together to be able to get into sync to be able to say, okay, we're going to plant this knife sheath, we're going to get this guy because we need a suspect.
It's impossible. And the way I can kind of prove that's impossible. Well, one, why would they do that? I think the biggest The biggest theory that's out there is that the University of Idaho must have pressured the police department into doing something so that they can arrest Brian Koberger. Now, for them to go and look at the applications of the people that are applying for the police in Pullman next door versus everybody they've arrested, including the guy that has a murder history, as a convicted murderer that lives down the street from the four victims, who also attempted to stab his wife and himself a couple of weeks after the murders. That guy lived down the street in the direction in which the white Elantra was going, but yet he's not good enough. Brian Koberger is. But I digress on that. When it comes to, man, I shouldn't have gone down that tangent. I kind of lost what I was saying. What was the initial question?
What would it take for all these agencies to get together to plant something in
Right.
order to frame an individual, of all the people on the planet? And they said, well, he's an outsider, but there's plenty of outsiders
Right.
in that WSU and Moscow area. I mean, most of the students come from out of state to
Mhm.
attend that university. I mean, there's plenty of people you could have, if
Right.
you want to plant somebody, you could plant it on anybody.
But if the case was University of Idaho, the question has to be, when did they decide that enough was enough? Was it a week into the investigation, a month into the investigation, or an hour into the investigation that they decided enough is enough? You need to find somebody, and just anybody. Because if it wasn't November 13th, then how did they go back in time or whatever to change out the DNA that was entered into CODIS? Because that knife sheath was collected that day, and it didn't go to, it may have gone to Moscow briefly, but it went to the Idaho State Lab in Boise. So it wasn't even under the
Right.
control of the Moscow Police Department. And it was over there, and it was collected, and it was entered into CODIS. So there's a DNA profile entered into a national database that can't be altered or adjusted or fixed or later taken out and put back in. It'd be impossible. So the theory to think that the University of Idaho pressured the police department just to arrest anybody makes absolutely zero sense.
I mean, also, you being a former law enforcement, I don't know how long ago, and you don't have to answer that. But I'm currently, like I shared with you on your show, I'm currently getting my bachelor's in criminal justice and psychology as
Mhm.
well, and there's chain of custody for all the evidence that's gathered.
Mhm.
So you have to document who touched it, where it went from there. They sign it, and then so on until it gets to the evidence locker or wherever it's going. And
Yeah.
that's the last person that has the signature. So you can't forward those signatures either. There's a reason for that. There's a reason that was even implemented.
Right. And I think Twizzle Stick says something about it was visible from the door. I think he's referring to the knife sheath. What it says is that it was on Mogan's side when viewed from the door, not visible from the door. So imagine if I were to tell you something like, "Hey, go to the back of my house," and from when you're looking from the back side of my house, behind the gate, on the right side, from where you're looking at, that's where something is located. That's what he was saying. He was saying from the door, it was on Mogan's right side. Right now, a lot of people question, like, how did he see it and not the other person? The size of that room was very small. Now,
Yeah.
I don't know how many people most folks are assuming could fit in there or would be allowed to go in there. But my assumption is you probably have your forensic officer and your lead detective. Now, if you're looking at the room from the door and you're saying that it's on Mogan's right side, and we know that Kaylee is up in the corner, pinned up, sitting down with her back in the corner, that tells you that their heads are facing the wall and that their feet are facing to the door.
Yeah.
Now, if you're looking from the door and the knife sheath's on the right side of Mogan and only one investigator, the lead investigator, is the only one going in, then that second investigator at the door wouldn't be able to see it. He would have to be later notified. So that's how that works, and that's how that is explained. But a lot of folks will see, oh man, this guy saw it and this guy didn't see it, so it must not have been there. And not understanding that they had an 8 by 10 foot room with two dead bodies and evidence everywhere that people couldn't just trample in there and go in there and check out. So it took maybe just only two people in there. And if you're not the lead investigator, you're not getting in there. Simple as
Yes.
that.
Right. So it's Maddie's body is what's obscuring the ability to see the knife sheath from that angle, in the
Right.
like standing more towards the doorway.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And so, that's why it said when viewed from the door. Now, it'd be different if it said, from the door I was able to see, or something of that nature. I was able to see the knife sheath, or the knife sheath was visible, from the door. It doesn't say it was visible from the door. It says when viewed from the door, it's on her right side. So it's just talking about perspective. It's not talking about actually being able to view it. You know what I mean?
Yes, I believe that a lot of the lingo in the PCA, people take it so concretely that they dissect it so much that they lose the generalized concept of what the PCA is about. It
Right.
was written by a police officer in order to get probable cause warrant for an arrest.
Yeah.
It is not the trial. It is not um it is not anything other than probable cause to show the judge, hey, this is the guy that we believe did it, and here's the evidence that supports it. Whether
Yep.
we're wrong, whether we're right, at this point in time, this is what we believe based on the evidence. You
Mhm.
have all these people gathering evidence, so how could all those people be wrong? I mean, to dispute a professional gathering evidence who's done it more than one time. I mean, many people suggested that most of the law enforcement was brand new, and the people gathering evidence were brand new. So we just had a brand new graduating class of officers and forensic technicians cleaning up this crime scene. Is that what happened, y'all?
Well, I mean, we saw video of the forensic team from the Idaho State Lab there. I have a drone footage of them going in there. It appears to be day one. And the reason why I believe it's day one, because in the drone footage, you have officers directing traffic in front of the house, and things moving around. Typically, that's a symptom or or evidence of non-planning, something that is in the moment. So I would assume that was day one.
Right.
For forensics lab is getting in there. I'm assuming there's pictures that are being taken. If Payne didn't get there, and I'm assuming the second time at 4 a.m. or 4 p.m. And the reason why I say is I'm assuming the second time, because it doesn't say necessarily that it was the first time that he had arrived to the scene was at 12 or at 4. It just says that he got back there and he walked the scene at that time. Now, from what I know, is that Jack DeCore lived down the street. He walked up to the house. He told the cops that were already out there that he was the ex-boyfriend of somebody that lived in the home, and he basically was taken in for questioning along with Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk. And so they were taken in right away. And so I'm assuming we heard the mayor say that the very next day that this was a crime of passion. Now, what were some of the reasons why they would think that? You have a girl that we assume, if the Gonsalves family is correct about the injuries, that had more injuries than others. She recently had broken up with her ex-boyfriend. He lived down the street. He was with her that night at the corner club, and she was moving to Austin and all these other things, moving on from her, and was dating other men. Most of the time, these things are pretty cut and dry. You know what I'm
Of
saying?
course.
And
Yeah.
so he became probably suspect number one. But as evidence came through, as the download of his phone, and as there was no evidence on his body, they began to look elsewhere. So, um, I can assume that they probably thought that Jack DeCore was suspect number one. So your lead detective is probably going to want to go talk to that guy if he's willing to talk. If you have a prime suspect saying, hey, this is my girlfriend, I want to help you, I'll say anything, I'll talk to you so we can clear this up. You're not going to want to wait for him to choose or decide to get a lawyer. You're going to go over there and talk to that guy. And
Exactly.
so that's probably why he didn't show up till 4. And, I understand it looks suspicious, but just to kind of understand like certain practices in law enforcement, none of it really is.
And to be fair, every case is different, correct?
That's true.
Every
100%.
every
Every situation.
investigation is different. Yeah, every situation is different. So you're not going to handle the last crime scene like you handled this crime scene, because everything is totally different based on what kind of crime it is. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, everything's different. Officers are trained to there's nothing routine, including traffic stops. And the way they train you that is they show you all the bad ones that happen, where people think that it's a routine stop and something ends up happening negative to the officer. And so Yeah, there is no routine situation. There is nothing like that. And yeah, you got to treat everything independently. Can you, use certain things to profile? Can you use like certain things in history to profile a certain person? To a certain extent, I think you can. I think it's a little bit more difficult now. I don't think there's some of the similar tells that they used to be, like the fire setting, bedwetting, things of that nature. I think you're probably looking for more towards, you know, uh, people that are having a lot of trouble in differentiating video games from reality and playing certain type of games and having certain type of anger issues associated with those type of things, and perhaps even narcotic use from psychologists that probably uh, make a big difference into why some of these horrific things happen today.
I agree with you on that. I agree that mental health is a big issue that, you know, working with criminal offenders myself, I've sat across the desk from individuals that have stated, had I not been under the influence, I wouldn't be sitting here. It was
Hmm.
my constant drug use, or my thought pattern was off, or this, that, and the other. I wouldn't be sitting here if I would have not allowed myself to feed into my urge, so to speak.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that boils down to everything. I mean, whether it's discipline or religious beliefs, things of that nature, having any type of negative urges to be able to control yourself. Yeah, 100%.
So, I want to ask you, Daniel, while I have you up here and we're discussing this, how common is it to get evidence wrong? Let's say the evidence on the Elantra, because this is a hot topic. They said it was a 2011 to 2013. And then
Mhm.
they came back and said, no, 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 it was a different year. How how prevalent is that to get that kind of situation, not necessarily wrong, but where you have to go backwards on what you said initially?
Well, I mean, at the end of end of the scheme of things, it really doesn't matter. When it comes down to trial, was it possibly a 2015 or not? I understand they may have thought it was a 2011 or a 2013, but is it or is it not? Now, the defense is going to have their own experts to go and look at that, and they're going to try to determine whether or not it was a previous model, and they're going to try to determine if there's something that is unique to the vehicle that would make it a previous model than the other. And so early on, once we found out that Brian Koberger was arrested, and we knew that he drove a 2015 Elantra, I initially and immediately stated that they didn't have good pictures of the vehicle. I said that the only videos and the pictures that they have of him have to be from security cameras that are pointing from the side. Most of those security cams are pointing at the street. The vehicles that are going to be captured are going to be along the side, not typically in the front or in the back. Now, there is a camera that does capture the front and back of his vehicle, but it's not the best. It's the 1112 King Road residence that captures the King Queen Road intersection. And so um, that also is a ring camera. It's not the best quality. In fact, there are still I've seen that camera, and I've seen images and partial videos of that camera. And in that camera, there are vehicles that are parked there. They're not moving, and you cannot see the license plates in those. Now, when we listened to what this last court stated, they stated that the city of Moscow doesn't save or doesn't keep or doesn't have the ability to retain those cam footage from the traffic lights. I don't understand why or how, or I'm not the expert in that, but I had
Right.
been told beforehand from somebody there that that was the case. Now, I was wondering if that's common knowledge, if people knew that, and is that a reason why this house was chosen? Because it was in a city where the light camera situation was more in favor of the person that's committing the crime. And so I knew that immediately back then in December when they arrested him in 2022. And this just verified what I had thought. I have pretty much predicted a lot of the stuff that's going to be happening in this case, basically just kind of following what the police have done, following their movements, and understanding how they investigate crimes and what they're doing. And so I knew that was the case. Now, is it going to make a big difference? No. Early on in the investigation, they thought it was a 2019 Sentra. All that means, them going from a 2019 Sentra to a 2011, 2013 Hyundai Elantra to a 2015 or up to a 2016 Elantra, is that they got more evidence as the investigation went along. So initial evidence probably only had security cam footage nearby the residence. I mean, you're going to end up, surveying that initial, 5 or 6 block radius area for cam footage and things of that nature. And then you're going to expand as you get more information. And so, yeah, all that tells me is that as evidence came in, they pointed in a different direction and they followed the evidence.
It is an interesting phenomenon that as time goes on, you learn more and thus you know more. And, the whole thing with the year of the car, I mean, in looking, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's really just the 2 little lights at the lower left and right of the front bumper as well as the back bumper. Those are what tell you whether it's in the range of 2011 to 2013 versus 2014 to 2016. There's changes in those lower corners. And I think a car at night with its headlights on makes it very difficult to see those markers, those distinguishing markers on the front or the back. I can only assume that they got a better view later. And I wonder if you tell me, Daniel, if you think it'd be a play that they would do or a chess move that they would do to correct what they had first put out saying it's a 2011 to 13. Yeah, to say it's a 2015, I think we were correcting ourselves. All that does is show your hand to the whoever they're after.
I mean,
I would applaud that move to not, what they have to do. They do have to put up with all the criticisms from the public and the YouTube community, but they didn't show their hand. At least I think that me personally, I think it's a good move.
Right. And I'm not sure if they would. I don't think they would withhold anything like that. But as far as his car goes, if you look in the inside of his vehicle from the traffic stops, his infotainment center is very basic. He has the very basic, bland version of the Hyundai Elantra. There's a good possibility that it didn't have fog lights or those extra fog lights that are on those other ones, because I've seen those other Elantras, the 2015 and 16, the ones that are kind of decked out.
Aren't those like luxury model?
Yeah. There's a
they have the ground effects and everything.
According to his VIN number, it's a GLS, which I think is the basic model.
Yeah, and you can see the infotainment center there, and it doesn't have the GPS, which means I know a lot of people are asking like, "Hey, what about the GPS? Let's look at the GPS on his vehicle. That's going to tell us something." And he doesn't have it. And I know that Twizzle just said something about in order to retain footage from the traffic lights, they have to request it to be retained. They didn't do that. That was on the Wendy app. They requested to do the retain on the footage from the Moscow, but they don't retain them. They asked about it and they said they don't do it. The only ones that they could retain were the Wendy ones. By the time they figured out that there was screenshots on the Wendy app in 3 months, and the only photos that were on there, I don't know if you guys have gone to the Wendy app. You can scroll back and it'll show you like screenshots throughout the day, which is one of the things that I thought the prosecution played very well. Ann Taylor was making this huge spectacle about, there being a recording. They have screenshots of cameras, but no recording to it. And they kept telling them, we don't have it. It doesn't exist. And I know it's a tactic. I'm not saying it's a good tactic, but both sides are playing their tactics. The alibi isn't in. So, the prosecution, this is my opinion, my speculation. This doesn't mean that I know this for a fact either, but I wouldn't be surprised if Bill Thompson told that officer like, "Hey, we need you to find this," and give him a little wink, like, take your time, because this guy's not giving us the alibi yet. But we need to get this. And I mean, can you prove that he couldn't find it and that he really knew where it was at? I don't think so. You know what I mean? So, and at the end of the day, the prosecution had till the end of September to turn it in, and they turned it in beforehand. So it's not going to do anything. There's no negative or positive outcome in it. The evidence is still going to be used against Brian Koberger. It's still going to be used in trial. And Ann Taylor, what is she going to do? How's she going to bring that up in trial and say, hey, isn't it true that we asked for information and you sent it in just before it was due? Like, it's going to be objected. They're going to say, what's the relevance and how does that work? It's not going to be brought up in court. None of that's going to be brought up when jurors, where it matters. So that's why I say it was just a big old fiasco. And at the end of the day, it kind of just made him look kind of bad, in my opinion.
Well, I have a picture of early footprint. Obviously, it's tag number 3, right? So it was one of the earlier evidence photos that I remember seeing. Do you remember seeing this photo?
Yeah, I have this one somewhere.
Okay.
But I have
well, I did a series or a couple videos on the, foot impression, tire impressions, how to lift prints and things of that nature. And I've gone over this footprint with the chat in other streams. I want your opinion or your expertise. Would this footprint, they would cross-reference it with people around the scene, right? They wouldn't just assume that this was the perpetrator's footprint, correct? They would have marked off the area. Nobody would have been able to go around that footprint to cross-contaminate it or anything of that sort. Would that be
Right.
correct to say?
To a certain extent, yes. Well, yeah, pretty much. I was never an investigator. I was never a detective. I never did any of those things. But
Okay.
I have been to a few murder investigations, and I have assisted, especially when I was new to the department in which I worked at. We had a couple of murders that happened, and since they weren't so common, they allowed us, the rookies, to go to them and watch how they investigated them and those type of things, just because it was good experience and you wouldn't really get. And I've assisted with certain things when it comes to, evidence collection and picture taking and things of that nature. When it comes to that, everything gets documented that you can see. Now, is this something that they think maybe perhaps pertains to the crime? At the time of the photo, they don't know. I would assume. I mean, it was probably taken very early on in the investigation, so it could have been relevant. It may not have been relevant, so you take pictures of it anyways.
Daniel, do
Of
you know if
course.
with the yellow markers, I mean, is there any technique, or not technique, but just a practice that they use where, like, the item that is of interest is like, I'm wondering if it's like it's facing the number or the number is facing it. Like, how do we know that this marker isn't for something that's to the left of the marker? Or I don't know if there's any standard practice so that question is answered without, ambiguity or something.
I would assume it's the footprint because it's the most visible thing and it's right there on it. It could be something behind it of value. Usually though, like, and it's a good observation, because if it's something like a footprint that they're looking at, they usually have something there of a reference as far as size to determine the size of the footprint or whatever it
Like
may
a
be.
ruler or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
anything. And I don't
I
see
mean,
that
just
present in this
looking,
photo.
yeah, just looking at the naked eye, wouldn't you say that was a 11 and a half or bigger boot size? You wouldn't say it was a size 9 or a size 8 women's, would you?
I don't know. I mean, that size, that 3 is probably about 3.5 to 4 inches in height, and that covers almost the entire heel. So I'm assuming that's somewhere between a 10 and a 12.
Yeah.
So I mean, but I
that
couldn't
was
tell for sure.
my point. That was my point when I was showing this, is that this was not a small shoe print. Not like, the one that they found, the Leighton shoe print, even that one wasn't a small shoe print.
I don't know what the size was. We haven't been able. I haven't seen anything that says the exact size of it, other than it was it had diamond pattern consistent with a Vans shoe, which would make sense. Like when you look at this case, I feel like whoever committed this crime took a lot of time to plan this. They had meticulous planning involved in it. Now, just because you plan something doesn't mean you're perfect. Everybody's human. Everybody makes mistakes.
Of course.
A lot of the mistakes that were made in this case were during the commission of the crime, not during the planning, not during the post part of the crime. Like, for instance, they didn't find DNA in his vehicle or in his car. That probably had a lot to do to the planning and whatever he did to plan to clean up the mess afterwards. But what do we know? We know that somebody drove into this place and drove around 3 different times before they stopped. There's a camera that catches them coming in and out. We know that it's not seen until after they suspect the murders to have occurred. And there's a few things that are in evidence to believe that the murders occurred during that time. One's a download of everybody's phone, and also an audio of, from 50 feet away, of sounds that are of a thud and other things that are unaligned with what Dylan says that she had heard. And so we know that this white vehicle passed by 3 different times before stopping. We know that on that audio that it picked up whimpers and voices, whispers. If somebody was mad and losing their mind, whether because they're under the influence of roids, let's just put it at that one, roid rage, there would be
Okay.
sounds of emotion there. You wouldn't see somebody who was willing to fight Ethan in front of everybody at Sigma Chi. Why all of a sudden is he going to take a moment to drive around 3 different times before losing his mind again and killing 4 people? And where are the sounds of the rage? Where are the sounds of the F you, I hate you, or the slamming of doors? Whoever committed this crime went in there without any forced entry.
Well, to be fair, also, because we do have the individual that believe different than some of us on this panel do, and it's okay. But they believe that you did hear a lot of that on the Linda Lane footage, which just to be fair, I mean, we can have different of opinion, but there's
I
some
understand that
people-
opinion.
Yeah.
The problem with that opinion, though, is that Steve Gonsalves has the video and audio from 1112 King Road residence, and there's none of those sounds from that video that's 50 feet away that
So
describe.
you have some insider information that we don't have.
Oh yeah, yes sir.
So I mean, I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, I can get you the screenshot of 156 from 1112 King Road. It's the neighbor's house, the one that picked up the vehicle doing the 3-point turn.
Okay,
And they have solid audio from 156 on. They can hear, what's going on next door and those type of things. And there is no cat pissing or any of those things in that video. Now, is there one in another one? I don't know. I'm not aware of any of that. I don't know where that story came from. But the whole purpose that Steve put out that 156 screenshot was to debunk not necessarily the noise that was in there was fabricated, but to say that noise could have came from somewhere else. Now, the house was over a football field away, and in between that house and the Linda Lane footage was an entire apartment complex that housed hundreds of students. Now, if that Linda Lane footage was able to capture any sounds going 100 yards in that direction through an apartment complex, it'd probably capture the sounds inside the apartment complex, capture 100 yards in front of it, to the north of it, to the east of it. And there's a good possibility that those sounds aren't necessarily from that house. Now, I think it was JLR who was out there on a couple of occasions in the middle of the night in that area on Greek Row. And he put up his phone where you can hear people screaming and yelling and all this other stuff, and it's party goers. It seems like there was one person that screamed that I would have thought was in trouble, but it was just a girl drunk screaming. They're having a good time. Right. And so, those type of things are happen in that area. Those yells, those type of noises and things like that. And so I'm just saying, I'm not saying that it's not that it's faked. What I'm saying is that it's not from that house because the audio that's next door doesn't pick it up.
Right.
I think there's even a body cam video where there was a noise complaint from I think it was like a Middle Eastern guy. He had his music cranked and his apartment was on the first level of that long building about halfway. And I hadn't really thought about the noises that come from there. I've always kind of focused on the 2 floors directly above the Linda Lane camera. That that you'd hear a lot from there. The owner of that Linda Lane camera emailed me and said he doesn't see that camera picking up sounds from the 1122 house at all. He says he mentioned that the buildings in between the camera. The camera is itself under $100. It's made by Rio Link. I've got a friend who's got a $1,000 Sennheiser 416 shotgun mic. I don't see that mic picking up. Like it's roughly 107 yards from the camera to the sliding glass door in the kitchen. I mean, like you said, it's a football field, and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
it's a good distance
just
away.
just to be clear, Daniel, let me take you back to the original statement you made as far as Steve G having that audio. What
Mhm.
all does it start with? I mean, is it just like the crackling noises we hear from Linda Lane, or is it audible on different sounds that are described in the PCA?
I haven't heard those things. I haven't
Okay,
asked to listen to it. I trust him when he told me that when I saw that and that those noises aren't there. I'm assuming that that's the camera that's 50 feet away that picks up all the other noises, because where that camera is located is approximately 50 feet away from where Xana's bedroom was. So, putting one and one together, kind of, assuming that's the right one. Plus, they were also friends of Kaylee and everybody that lived there. So I don't see them having an issue handing over things like that over to the Gonsalves family.
right, right,
But yeah, I from what I understand, the probable cause affidavit about the sounds and everything that are there is pretty accurate. Like the Linda Lane footage, the what that gives us is shows us it shows us the accuracy of the PCA as far as this person driving around, but it also shows where this person could have made mistakes. You see, he drives around 3 different times, and on the 4th time, he starts to act funny. Now, what happens right before the 4th time? There's a DoorDash order that was delivered. Now, the the King Road residence was facing Queen Road. I can assume with a fair amount of accuracy that could be confusing to people who aren't in the area, especially if you're purchasing something from a neighboring city and they're bringing it over. If they're not
right,
familiar with the
right.
area and they're looking for 1112 King Road, they might be on that other road looking back and forth and not on Queen. So apparently this was something that Xana did often. Um, with those assumptions and her experience, I would assume that she probably had something on, like a light, to indicate to the DoorDash driver, this is the home where the food needs to be delivered. Give me 1 second.
Well, I've always stated that there's no way, I mean, in my mind, okay, I'm speaking for myself here, that there's no way the narrowness of that street, Queen Road, with all those cars parked on the side and everything else, the consistency of the time that the DoorDash driver was there and BK was supposedly driving around in that area, how they wouldn't have been able to cross paths at one particular point, either coming or going. There's only
Right.
one way in and one way out. So, I mean, even in the PCA, it states that Brian um, made an attempt to park in the driveway and got
Mm-hmm.
stuck. So, I mean, was he dodging the DoorDash driver at that point? We don't know. But I mean, there's such a limited area and space, you would only analytically assume that, hey, they had to cross paths. Somebody saw somebody,
Right.
even if he didn't know, even the DoorDash driver didn't know that Brian was doing what he was doing or whoever it is, he saw more than probably what we've been told. And he's probably a close eyewitness, even more than Dylan. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's possible. I mean, I've been contacted by somebody who claims to, I'm going to put this, be related to the DoorDasher in one way or the other. I honestly believe it was the DoorDasher, mainly because I got this information and this person contacted me before that information came out, before Brian Koberger's arrest. And I had passed that information along to the family, to law enforcement, like a while ago. This lady gave me her number. I'll say it's a lady. I think I accidentally slipped that out, but it is what it is. This lady gave
Right.
me her information, gave me her address. I know exactly where this person lives and everything else. And I handed all that over to the Gonsalves family and to law enforcement and to, I think I sent it over to the FBI tip line. And so this was before that came out. And from what that person said, now I don't know how true it is, was that they had seen the car and they saw somebody staring outside of the car looking at the house. Pretty weird. And that was it. But that was during one of the pass-bys, not when it was stopped, none else like that. I don't know how true that is or whatever, but if it is true, this person claimed to have gotten a good look at the person that was driving the car. So there could be a witness. I don't know, but it wasn't a witness that person was, got off the vehicle or got into the house or any of those type of things. But that was the premises of the information that I got, but take that for what it is. She gave me a lot of information about herself, or I'm assuming it's herself. And I passed it on to law enforcement and to the family. And, I really haven't asked a lot about it since. You know what I mean? One, I'm not connected to anybody inside the investigation per se in Moscow, so I wouldn't know what happened there with that or the FBI. My law enforcement connection that I'm aware of in this case is out of Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Daniel, I got a question for you. I'm assuming that the light bulb camera at 1112 will clearly reveal, because we're all questioning, is that an Elantra that we see on the Linda Lane footage? But the light bulb camera at 1112 sees all that come in, all that go out, right? So I would assume that anybody that has had the privilege of seeing that footage from that camera knows without a shadow of a doubt what type of car that is that
maybe
entered.
I mean, the lights are on probably. And so they thought early on it was a 2019 Sentra. So what that tells me is that they probably got a good profile picture of it as it was doing its turnaround. And I'm assuming the headlights were probably too bright to determine what the front end looked like. Because if they would have, I would have assumed that would have been probably one of the first videos taken up, the next door neighbor. That would have been the first piece of evidence they would have looked at. And early on, they thought it was a 2019 Sentra. So I'm assuming that it's probably just a clear view of the side.
Well, that
2019 Sentra
screenshot
is very similar in
on the profile, yeah.
Yeah, that screenshot that you're talking about that was taken from that camera, that's a good quality camera. I mean, it was in black and white, correct?
It was in black and white. It's black and white. It is a cream. It's a ring video surveillance, and I mean, you can see certain things, but like I said, when you look at it, you can see the cars that are in front of it. Those cars aren't in motion, and those cars don't have their lights on. And I'm assuming that those are kind of hard to determine exactly year, make, and model. I mean, I'm sure you can tell and say, hey, that truck right there looks like a Chevy, but can you determine if it's, a 99 or a 2000 or something to that nature? I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, I mean, also, Jeff and I had talked over a video about the Elantra. We've done probably 2 or 3. And I mean, most of the stuff that we've talked about is very amateur stuff. You're right, Jeff? I mean, it's nothing like we're experts or anything like that.
I'll
But
take amateur as a compliment, so that's great.
but one thing we noticed is whenever lights are shown on a license plate, it's very difficult to see exactly what the number is. Is there a way that law enforcement has to overcome that glare? Do you have that photo, Jeff, of the 1118?
Yeah, I'll pull that out.
I don't know. My law enforcement career was almost 20 years ago, so a lot of technology has changed.
Okay, I got you. But I mean, would it be fair to I guess think that they could possibly have something that clears out the glare where they could read the numbers? Because when light does hit a license plate, it kind of reflects like a mirror,
From my understanding, I think it depends on the technology of the camera. If the camera is capable of being, modified in that manner, I think it's possible. But typically, those type of cameras that have that ability are the ones that are on the street, the street cams. I mean, if you go and look at the Wendy app and those street cams, even the ones at night, you can see everything. You can see driver's license. I mean, you can see license plates. You can see inside the cars. You can see everything. It's very unfortunate that those cameras weren't working or weren't retaining information in Moscow. I think there would be no doubt of who committed this crime if they were retaining that information. And like I said, somebody had told me that a long time ago, because I had brought up the fact that there was cameras and that they would have captured him going this way or that way. In fact, my whole theory on him traveling down a specific road is based on the fact that he didn't go directly to I-95 or whatever, 195 or whatever it is that's heading southbound towards Blaine, because there's a camera right there. Well, now that I know that they don't retain that, it doesn't necessarily blow it out of the water. It's still highly possible. It just doesn't mean that it's also possible that he could have gone the other direction as well. So,
Well, look at this picture right here. This screenshot. Obviously, it's just a still photo, but these license plates are, they're lit up like a reflection, of a mirror. And I was wondering if that camera, this camera right here, that would have seen him drive into Queen Road and done the 3-point turn right there, if it would have captured more than, or if it would have reflected the turn where you couldn't really have seen anything, because as we've noted, Brian's car didn't have tinted windows. So if this car had tinted windows, that's going to be a problem in itself.
You're not going to be able to tell that. You can't tell that at night unless there's a light pointing into the car. There's no way. All those vehicles right there appear to have tinted windows. Doesn't necessarily mean that they all do. It's at night.
Well, a moving vehicle,
unless there's a light on inside the vehicle, it would be very.
If there's a light shining as a car passes by, you can tell if it has tinted windows or not.
You mean on the opposite side of the car?
You can.
Right. I don't know about during this type of equipment though. Like, what we're looking at right now, I highly doubt it's going to be capable of doing that. Like, for instance, at the top corner underneath that line, what kind of vehicle is that? And does that vehicle have tinted windows? I mean, you really can't tell. I mean, it looks dark. Could it be tinted windows? Could it not be? I mean, I don't know.
Well, I mean, if they're looking deep into this vehicle, as I'm certain they were, they would be able to see if there was a silhouette of a person, if there was 2 people in the vehicle, if there were 3 people in the vehicle. If the vehicle didn't have tinted windows, they would have been able to see that on the camera. They would have been able to zoom in, especially if it had a high quality lens like this camera supposedly has. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but this camera is not a high quality lens. It's you can't even see the license plates right directly in front of it. If you go to wendy.com and look at those cameras at night, and that'll show you what a high quality lens or picture is at night. This is
I guess the only other camera I have to gauge this on is that crusty Linda Lane camera.
Yeah. Well,
you know what I mean? So this is high quality compared to the Linda Lane cameras.
Well, isn't there at a certain point that you can see a car come in, and when that car comes in, it hits a light at that camera and it turns on the color. I think you can tell at that point that some of the pull that up. I want to know if at that point you can see if those vehicles directly in front of it are tinted or not, because before that happens, it sure does appear that they are tinted. I wonder if that's the case when the light turns on. And if it's not, then that kind of tells us that we're not going to be able to tell if this vehicle has tint or not based on, a photo at night. It's going to be hard to determine. Now, I know because I'm a car enthusiast and I've taken multiple pictures of cars at night that it's very difficult to determine.
And I've had cars with, almost limo tint on them. And, compared to the ones that, I've had windows busted out that didn't have the same kind of tint, and you can definitely tell the difference.
Right. I mean, you can with the naked eye and during daylight or things of that nature, or if you have a really good camera. But if you're looking at
you're being a good screen, you're being a good sport, Daniel. I like you're being a good sport.
No, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that if I'm outside and with the naked eye, if I saw a vehicle pass by me, I probably could determine whether or not it had tinted windows or not. It is difficult with glares and things of that nature, especially when you have a camera that picks up or is attempting to pick up any type of light. It is very difficult to determine those type of things. I've looked at several different cameras and screens and videos and stuff like that. not necessarily in a murder investigation, but I've done burglary investigations where I was looking for vehicles and had to look through security camera and CCTV, and it's not always easy to determine those, especially if the camera is black and white. If it's a colored camera, it definitely would be a lot easier.
Well, doesn't this camera turn into color after it passes
Yeah, it's
the
about
Toyota
to.
right there?
There you go.
So I think that gray vehicle right there to the left, that one doesn't have tint. You can rewind that one. You can see when the vehicle passes, you can see the light inside it. And it also, when the light turns on, it doesn't appear to have tint, but right there, it looks like it has tint. See right there, I can kind of see inside it. These other vehicles, I wouldn't be able to. You see right there, you can kind of tell in the back seat. It doesn't appear that gray vehicle to the left has tint yet. Right there, it looks like it has limo tint. See right there, you can see the back
bet my
seat.
life on
Exactly.
tint or not.
That, my friend, had Murphy in the back seat, bro. That had Murphy in the back seat.
Yeah. By the way, like the whole dog thing, I've talked to Christy about this multiple, like on a few occasions, and I've asked her about that. I was like, hey, Murphy, did they take him out? Does he have his own spot? Does he have his own spot in his own room? And I think there's a picture in Kaylee's room that you can actually see the dog kennel or crate. But I talked to Christy. She said that her, Olivia, or anybody, they did not see any footage of anybody walking the dog or of them going into the house. They didn't have an angle of them into the house. They saw basically the private driver pull in down the street, and they knew that that's when they got off. You know what I mean? Okay. But there is no visual of them. I know that there is an interview out there where Olivia says that, that she saw or would have thought that she would have walked the dog. And when I asked her about that and I sent her that interview, I was like, hey, look, Olivia, it sounds like she's saying she saw them walk the dog. And what she said was she was mistaken when she spoke. She said what she meant was that she would have walked the dog. That's what she would have thought. But there was no footage of anything like that they couldn't see. And that's one thing that I think that a lot of people don't take into consideration is that, especially early on in this, and when this crime occurred, they don't take in consideration of the emotional aspect that these people have. They take everything that the Steve Gonsalves has said for gold, or the family has said for gold, and not understanding that there's an emotional component to this. And when somebody's that emotional, I don't think you can really justify or stand on the accuracy of those statements 100%. A lot of the things that they did were on live TV, and I can assure you that people get nervous and people don't answer the way they would have thought or normally thought, or answered completely wrong on and sometimes simple questions that have nothing to do with investigations or any of those type of things, just out of mere nervousness. And so when you add the emotion of losing your daughter and your daughter's best friend, who was also like a daughter to you, harping on every single word they say is probably not going to result in a completely accurate information.
Well, I mean, early on, people were speculating on Dylan, and I've had my speculation as well throughout this whole thing. But then, I got to thinking, well, she wouldn't have been in the best mindset after seeing what she saw and then instantly being taken down and interviewed, She wouldn't have been, I mean, I'm sure she was interviewed more than once. So, I mean, that day of the murders, I'm sure that was just a preliminary one. And, I'm sure that she was interviewed more than once.
Yeah.
And, the same thing with Bethany.
So, well, I can say this from the information that I know, from what I heard, and I am assuming that this is Dylan. I don't know which one it is, but from what I heard, that one of the girls was really trying to be very, very helpful and cooperative, but like some of the things that she was saying was just kind of like gibberish. Like she was in so much trauma, like crying and freaking out and stuff. And that the other one was like in shock, like couldn't even speak.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, though, is after day one, police had majority of the information about what Dylan stated in the probable cause affidavit was already known. The the fact that she had heard somebody in the house, heard the things that she heard, saw somebody walk out with a black mask and bushy eyebrows. All that information was out that first single day. I can tell you that for certain.
Well, it must be disheartening to know all this stuff as a family and hear so much other stuff that is not true. You know, some of the very vicious speculation that places not only your children but the other people in the house in a very, very negative light. I mean, that has to be tremendously tragic. You know, like, okay, there's no way that this could have happened because you know pretty much the groundwork of what did happen. And then people are going in different directions, and you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, how could they ever see my daughter in this light, or my sister in this light, or her friends, or whatever? I mean, there was a lot of painted stuff that, you know, drug dealing, prostitution, you know, all that stuff that was just terrible to paint
Mm.
these individuals in, you know, and it's
Mhm.
tragic that that was allowed, because, you know, that diminishes their memory of losing their lives, you know.
Right. No, and yeah, for sure. I mean, especially like, and I get it. I mean, is it suspicious that these girls didn't call 911 right away? Is it suspicious that they called somebody else right away? Yeah, yeah. But the truth be is that because of the channel that I have and the following that we have, we've had a lot of people call in. A few of those people that have called in have been victims of home invasions. One of them was a girl who somebody broke into her house. Two people broke into her home, and she ran into her closet and she had her phone on her. She didn't call 911 while they were there. They ended up finding her and tying her up and assaulting her. Afterwards, she called her friends and family, didn't call 911. Those things are more common than you think.
Yeah,
You
of
know,
course.
a lot of people think that they would act a certain way under an extreme amount of stress. But truth be told, you don't know how you would act in that moment. Majority of people would freeze. I've seen it multiple times. Unless you're trained, you know, to be in a certain situation, you typically don't act in the manner that you think you would act, that you've seen on TV, that you've seen other people do, that have been trained or who have been in those type of situations. Now, I've seen people that have been trained freeze in certain moments.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, to think that a 19-year-old girl who was intoxicated that night, who probably the last thing that she's going to think on her mind is that her four friends are getting massacred, you know, in the house where she's at. Um, you know, I get the suspicion, I get the questioning and all that stuff. I mean, but that's for the job of the police. That's not the job of the viewer to go and harass these people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, many people these days don't trust law enforcement, so that law enforcement would not be the first person they call. Most people would call their mother, their father, whoever they're closest to. Muscle memory will tell you, okay, anytime you know, you would say, Dad said, anytime I need him, call him. So Dad's the first person you call, you know?
Yeah.
It would not be law enforcement a lot of the time, unless that's where your mindset is, unless you've been programmed to, okay, call law enforcement first and then call us, you know? It
Yeah.
would it would not go down that way.
So
Yeah.
Daniel, my assumption has been that with Dylan and Bethany, that they just weren't aware that any sounds that they were hearing were, which I think is what you kind of just said, that they weren't aware that it was unaliving happening. Is that what you feel, or is there anything that you kind of know behind the scenes that I know you can't reveal, but that's what the case is? Because I would love to be able to say, can we just put that to rest and stop accusing them of cleaning up
Right.
or helping the cartel load the car or whatever?
Right. Well, one, they downloaded their phones, and if there was any indication that there was some sort of mix up with drugs or any of those things, why wouldn't they murder them? And for those that think, oh, it's because they're female, well, they arrested Emma Bailey for drugs and murder, and you know there was no blink of an eye. And the only reason that those two are out, Demetrius Brown or Brian, or I don't remember his last name, and Emma Bailey, are because, well, let's think about it clearly. What usually happens when somebody gets caught with drugs and then they get out free? It's because they usually talked about who gave them the drugs. So, yeah, they arrested them. They charged them. They probably dined out whoever it is that they bought the drugs from, which is why they're not there. I don't think anybody's even heard from them since. They probably left town. Shit, I would if I dimed out somebody. And
Right.
You know what I
Do you
mean?
think Emma? A lot of people believe that Emma removed something from her backside in that little police room. I thought I heard her saying that her back was itching earlier in the body cam video, and that I think she saw the opportunity to, or maybe it was sweat. I know she took a tissue and then went towards her back. Everybody thinks she pulled something out of her rear end to dispose of in the trash can right in front of a body cam, police body cam. I don't know.
I've seen people do dumber stuff in front of cameras. I wouldn't put it past her of doing that, just given the fact also that she has a history and what else she was arrested for later on. I don't put it past that being the situation. The charge would be much higher if she gets caught with that, especially if she's being transported to a corrections facility after going to jail. There, they would strip search her, and if she's caught with that would be an enhancement. So I wouldn't put it past the fact that there's that possibility that she put it out there. But like the fact that this was like a drug-related incident just boggles the mind. Like, I don't doubt that recreational drugs were used in that house. I'm fairly positive they were. Now, does that mean that that's the reason why somebody would have killed these people? Highly doubt it. I've worked on drug tactical forces and stuff like that, and I've actually gone to conventions where cartel and border related crimes were a huge part of those conventions. And when you have a situation where some people are saying that these girls were killed because they were carrying X amount of drugs and they threw them down the toilet or whatever the case may be, if you have that amount of drugs, it's not going to be left inside of a house where there's going to be a bunch of people walking in and out. It's not going to be left at a party house. Those type of houses are usually occupied by people that live there and that are getting paid for them to hold those drugs, and also from other people that are being paid from the same people that are paying those folks to hold the drugs to watch those folks hold the drugs. And also those guys are typically armed. And not only are those guys armed, but also typically down the block or somewhere else, you have some more eyes on this house of that magnitude. The other thing is, when it comes to like drugs and stuff, they had a forensic download of their phone. So unless Dylan, Bethany, or one of these people met somebody for the very first time and said, hey, one day we want to be part of this criminal mastermind, so before we switch over phone numbers, let's go buy burner phones, I'm pretty positive they would have been able to find the contact between them and anybody else selling narcotics. It would not have been a very difficult thing to find. And in my opinion, there's no reason or rhyme on earth why they would try to defend, and not just the city of Moscow Police Department, but also, Idaho State Police, FBI, or anybody else would defend whatever, in efforts to just clear the situation. It doesn't make any sense.
Do drug pushers of that magnitude listen to country music? It's not what I imagine when I think of folks like that.
No,
I guess they could.
You'd be surprised, man. Like I said, I've worked on some drug tactical stuff, and I've had to go on some pretty crazy ranches that had a lot of expensive stuff, and we found out why they had a lot of expensive stuff on their ranch. So, there's evidence of those things. And typically, if you had some sort of drug-related offense where somebody's going to go in there and commit a murder like this, there wouldn't be a mystery to it. There'd be a calling card. There'd be a message to be sent. There was 4 people who were executed in California around the time that this murder had occurred, and they had pointed it towards the cartel right away. They knew it was cartel. There's symptoms of somebody being affiliated with the cartels or with drugs to that magnitude, and it's usually like shoot first, ask questions later type of thing. It's not like, hey, let's go in there, make sure that none of our DNA is left behind. And while we're at it, let's frame the PhD student down the road. I don't see it flying.
Daniel, do you have thoughts? Let's assume they've arrested the right person, the person who did this. Do you have thoughts on why this happened, why he did it?
Well, we have audio 50 feet away, right? And in that audio, do we hear somebody losing their mind? Do we hear somebody screaming out of anger? Do we hear somebody, love struck, anything? No, it's pretty quiet, pretty calm. Somebody went in there, didn't leave their DNA behind, at all. I mean, a lot of people look at the car and say, hey, you know, there's no DNA in the car. And my rebuttal to that is, where would you rather think, where would it be more likely to find DNA? In a car where a person who's trained in forensics has 7 weeks to clean, or on the bodies of 4 individuals where a person stabbed them, meaning they had to be in close proximity. They had to swing their arm. There had to be effort put into it. You know, you would think you'd find sweat. You think you'd find hair. You think you'd find an eyelash. You think you'd find
Well,
something.
let me stop you right there, Daniel. I just wanna ask this, okay?
Okay.
So the crime was being committed, okay?
Mhm.
To clean up your mess, so to speak, so that you don't get implicated in a crime, it would even take even longer, I would believe, that to clean your DNA, your blood, if you dropped any. I mean, it would have to be a meticulous type situation where you didn't leave anything behind but trace DNA on a sheath. I mean, it's just hard to wrap my mind around it. I know it's possible. I may, I may get there one day, but at this point in time, I don't see it, and it drives me crazy. That's why I'm listening to you. But wouldn't it wouldn't it take longer to clean up your stuff as you're doing these things?
Or you planned very meticulously a way not to leave your DNA behind. Uh, what's his name? Porco. This guy in Rochester, New York, drove 3 hours, um, s- murdered his dad by hitting him in the head with an axe, stood over him and hit him in the head with an axe, and then did the same to his mom.
Right.
Got blood everywhere. No sign of cleanup in the house, no sign of anybody taking a shower, no sign of anything. And yet this guy drove 3 hours back and got no DNA left in the car. He drove significantly longer and, you know, used a significantly larger weapon, which required significantly more force, which would make you think that there would be a significant more amount of blood splatter back to the assailant, and yet he didn't get any DNA in his Jeep. Now, the reason that they believe that he was able to accomplish that was because he worked at a veterinarian clinic. And inside this veterinarian clinic, he had access to clothing that protected him from blood and blood splatter when performing animal surgeries. And so, does Brian Koberger have, you know, something that would protect him from contaminating a scene and or from taking a scene with him? I believe so. I mean, he's worked in forensics. The the fact that they took in a tag for a Dickies coveralls kind of tells you a little bit about what the police are thinking as far as what he may have been wearing that night. And maybe, and who's to say that they didn't have any fabric underneath the fingernails of one of the victims? Now, if there was fabric underneath the fingernails of the victim, we wouldn't know that right now because that Dickies tag for the Dickies, that Dickies tag wasn't picked up until after his arrest. So that was after the probable cause affidavit. So is it possible that now that they have this Dickies tag and they have maybe potentially some fibers or something, maybe there's more evidence that's out there that we don't even know about? And I'm sure we're going to find out those things. But yeah, at the end of the day, if there's no DNA on those bodies and we see that somebody left there at 4:20 a.m. at a high rate of speed, we can assume that that person is the person that committed the crime. Now, Brian Koberger's own defense team is not arguing that the person that's in that white vehicle is not the murderer. They're saying that Brian Koberger is not in that white vehicle. And so the person that committed this crime was only in that house for a short period of time. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, Dylan and Bethany, they could have cleaned up, and that's why they couldn't find DNA or anything of that nature. But if you're willing to believe that Bethany and Dylan can clean up in 8 hours and not willing to believe that Brian Koberger, who has experience and training, can do the same thing in a smaller area where nobody was actively being killed or bleeding is beyond me. And he had 7 weeks to do it too.
No, I'm not that naive to believe that that couldn't have happened. I was just trying to figure out
Right.
exactly what process it would take. What kind of chemicals did he have? I
Bleach.
mean, did he have wipes? Did he have, were they already pre-soaked? Was it in a Ziploc bag? He just reached
Right.
in, wiped everything down. You get what I'm saying? I'm a visual
Yeah.
person, so that's where I'm trying to wrap my mind around it. But we
Well,
have Leslie that's asking, can you ask about the weapon being a K-bar for sure?
I mean, I don't know for sure. I can assume that that's the case. There was a K-bar knife sheath found underneath the body of a victim. They have a fixed blade knife is what they suspect is the weapon of that was utilized. There's probably, if somebody used a K-bar knife, with the force that was described, used on the injuries, there would be some bruising and outlining of the guard around the punctures. And so, I mean, also you have metal fragments that may have been fallen off the blade when it collided with bone. And those metal fragments can be tested and determined to, you know, if they came back to the same place of where the metal is forged. You never know if they can. There's a possibility they can determine that they came from the same manufacturer. I'm not entirely sure about that, but I think there's enough evidence to show that it was a K-bar knife.
How about the depth of the stabs? Could they be able to they'd be able to tell how long the knife is from that?
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of things that they can tell. I mean, I'm not a forensic guy. I would, you know, that would have to be a Steve from True Crime Web answer. He's my CSI friend that we've done a couple of experiments and stuff together, and yeah, that's a question for him, to be honest with you.
Oh, he did the lighting test, the good vibes light type of simulation and stuff.
Yeah, he did that. He did the latent footprint also, which is another thing where a lot of people are assuming that there's just one latent print. That is not at all what the PCA says. What the PCA says is that they corroborate what Dylan is saying as far as the killer leaving and the direction that the killer is leaving by the latent footprint. In order for a footprint to become latent, it has to be typically like visible first, right? You step into something, your first step is going to be visible. Your next step is going to be less visible. And eventually, after a few steps, it's not going to be visible at all. So the fact that it was latent means that it was one of the last steps taken. It wasn't one of the first ones. And it's given the direction in which that Dylan was saying that she saw the killer go. And so that was just corroborating that information. Again, the PCA is designed to be as vague as possible. And so you're not going to put on there was 145 bloody footprints, and on the 145th bloody footprint facing this direction, it was latent. So we believe that, you know, it was one of the last ones. I mean, that's something you would hear in court, but not now. That's why they say like the PCA is irrelevant at this point, because the information that they use to get the probable cause isn't the information that was used to also charge him and get the indictment. That's when you get all the information and all the evidence and you put that together and then you plan for trial. So that's where that goes at.
That's an interesting description about the footprints, because I know when my dog comes in from the backyard, if his feet are a little damp with a little bit of dirt on them, you see like the footprints. And I'm thinking, oh, I got to go back and be sure to mop those up. The next day, I'm wondering to myself, did somebody mop them up? Because I don't see them. And I know nobody did.
Yeah.
I know my family.
I mean, very, very interesting questions and answers. I appreciate you coming up, Daniel, and coming up and answering these. I'll have to get with you before our other scheduled one to make sure that we have some topic to talk about, because we talked a lot about certain things tonight that I don't want to really rehash a lot of it.
Yeah. I appreciate you bringing me on.
Hey, thank you so much. Anytime that you're in the neighborhood, come on up, man.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
thrilled
Yes,
to
sir.
see Daniel speak freely.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
nice.
I'm glad that you made it past, what was it, 6 minutes? 6 minutes and 20-something seconds.
Yeah, no, apparently I was taking 5 minutes to answer questions. I was asked 20 questions in 6 minutes. I don't understand how I spent 5 minutes answering 20 questions in 6 minutes, but I appreciate it. I really do. You know, thank you everybody. And as far as, and I just want to say this, as far as the blob thing, we did do that test with Steve. It is a blob at first, but even with booties, the footprint with the blood, I mean, you can it's defined. You can see it for a while on what kind of shoe it is, the size of the shoe, the whole 9 yards. So yeah. I think I have it somewhere. Next time I'm on here, I'll bring up that experiment so you can see what I'm talking about.
Sounds great, man. Sounds great. I'm gonna stay up here with Jeff a couple minutes. I want to discuss something with him, but Daniel, I'm gonna go ahead and remove you from the
Thank you, Daniel.
panel. Thank you so much for your time, brother.
Thank you, man. You have a good one. You have a great week, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.
I'll
All
email
right,
you
now-
again too, Daniel. I'm sorry I didn't see that email back from you.
No
We'll
problem,
keep
man.
in
I added you
touch.
on Facebook too, so I'll message you
Cool.
there. All right, later.
Awesome.
All right. Hey Jeff, you and I were talking really quickly about that video of him getting pulled over at WSU. Do you have that video on hand by any chance?
Yeah, yeah.
I wanna discuss that a couple minutes, and then we're gonna wrap it up because it's gotten kind of long. You guys in chat, give yourself a hand, man. You are awesome. Thank you so much for your question. Thank you for the ability to get along and not sit there and start a fight or argument if you don't agree with something. I mean, we're all adults in here. Everybody's opinion is valid. So I always like the fact that you guys can ask questions, and even if you don't agree with it, you can just continue going on and speak your mind, speak your mind, because that's what this panel is for.
Yeah, there you go. There's that video.
Heather.
What did Heather say?
She says, fight.
Jerry.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, AR. Thank you so much.
I think everybody's very passionate about this, and it's sometimes it can be hard to keep your emotions under control, but I think it's important to do so.
Yeah, Jeff and I were talking about this earlier, and I know that you guys have seen this video. It's from Law and Crime, and this is when he got pulled over by that officer at WSU. And the first thing that Jeff and I noticed, and I'm sure you guys noticed this as well, look at those eyeballs. Look at those eyeballs just poking out. Like, how could anybody not notice those eyeballs before the bushy eyebrows? I can see the eyebrows, but the eyeballs, man, that does it for me.
With this footage and look at the date. I mean, this is a month before the crime. I kind of wondered if this officer, when it all went down with the crime, if she remembered this encounter, remembered this white Elantra, remembered Mr. Koberger. I mean, there's plenty little things. I'm no expert in memory and human memory, but the fact that the whole discussion about crosswalks, that might make this memorable to stand out from other traffic stops that are pretty mundane. I don't
And
know.
see that female walking, that Asian right there? Look at Brian. He takes a peek here in a second. Right.
Well, we don't know that for sure. You've just revealed that you're taking a
Right
peek.
there.
One thing I did notice with the documents, it looks like his registration. He's got, current registration, and then right underneath it, he's got his previous registration. So he is, very good with his record keeping.
Yes, you're right, Susan.
documentation,
There is no 7-inch screen. You're right on that one.
Right, give you a little sound if you want.
Paula says, to me, it's not so much the brows, but the brow line being prominent in the dark wearing a mask. I'm sure that's all you could see.
Yeah.
Very good point. No tint. So you noticed that, did you? No tint.
I still, I think I agree with Daniel, and I think I had never really heard anybody else have that feeling, because I've always said I just don't see you being able to determine definitely any of those cars at night have tint or not.
Well, I mean, right now it's daytime, and we're seeing that there's no tint. I mean,
Yeah.
when he gets pulled over in Indiana, there's no tint.
But if you're comparing to like Linda Lane footage and that still frame from the light bulb camera, to say, because I hear a lot of people say with surety that, well, these cars have tinted windows, like it's a definite, and I can't say that that I'm a definite.
Restart it from the very beginning so we can see the back window. I missed it. So okay, right. Can you stop it? Go back a little bit. Right there. Keep going. Okay. Right the right there. Can you see in there?
There's probably, let me search. There's probably a better moment in time, because I'm assuming, I don't know if the passenger side front window is down, so that's hard to tell. But let's see if we can see, like maybe when she starts to walk back to her car. There you go.
I mean, I could be wrong. I'm just, I'm not an expert on window tinting or anything like that, but I've always thought his car did not have any window tint.
But I think the question I'm imagining is that the whole issue with the window tint is we want to know if on any of these cameras could you see the the occupants inside the vehicle. Wait, let me just go to when she's coming back to the car. I'm curious if anybody had any thoughts on where the dispatcher mentions Sonata, because 12 Gauge and I were talking about that earlier. I think, at least I have a theory on why the dispatcher questioned. She said Hyundai Sonata. I don't hear a lot of people talking about that. There was a lot of talk before about that issue, but all right, let's see.
Okay, pause it. Okay, you can't see in the back window, okay? I'll give you that.
It's hard to tell. I don't know. Also, too, look at the, those little red reflectors on the bottom left and right of the bumper. Right, boom, right here. This is the distinguishing marker to let you know this is between.
But look how clean his car is,
and
right?
2016.
How clean his car is right there compared to the drive back home to Pennsylvania. I know they went through snow and all that, but it looks like he keeps his car pretty meticulous.
Yeah.
What do y'all think? It's hard to tell on cam, even harder at night. You're right, Daniel. Harlot, let's see what you say. I drive a Coburger Mobile. Mine has light tinted windows, but they probably come with different levels.
I'm curious, Daniel, would you remember a traffic stop like this? Do you think this female officer would remember this encounter a month later when she heard that we're looking for a white Elantra, bushy eyebrowed guy? Or maybe there's a chance, I don't know. Is there a chance that it's a small area. It seems like most of the cops would be kind of aware of what's going on.
Well, okay, if we can't be certain on this, the video that we showed a couple weeks ago where that car is exiting the Exxon Road, White Road or whatever,
right.
on the Steiner
White Avenue. Yeah.
did that car have tinted windows?
I just don't know. I don't think you can
Okay,
tell.
that's your assignment, Jeff, from here on out, and yours too, Daniel. At nighttime, I want you to look at as many cars as you can and try to figure out which ones are tinted and which ones are not.
You would need to. Well, yeah.
Report back to me next week. What?
Actually, maybe I should shoot some video of my stepson's car. He's got tinted windows. We can try and figure out how bright a light do you need to put on the opposite side of the car, shining through the window to be able to see it when it's tinted versus, I could simulate just roll the windows down and see what it looks like with the windows down.
Yeah.
But oh wait, that was a good view right there.
Paula says she may have yelled, "It's crosswalk guy."
Crosswalk guy did it.
See, look out the
Okay.
back window. See the
Yeah,
back
that's
window
pretty.
right there? It's rolled up.
That's pretty. Yeah, it looks like this is a sticker on the window, right? So that's this
Yes.
window is up too. Look, fast enough on the.
Yeah, look out that window right there. See? If it was tinted, I live in Texas, so these type of things, are important here. Look at that back window right there. Can you see through it?
Yeah, yeah. I just think
Even
you
with
can't.
mild tint, it would not reflect dark at nighttime. I can promise you, it would not.
But I think the reason we see through there, it all has to do with the light. There's daylight, and if you're trying to tell if it's tinted at night, you need some light. You need to see some light to. Um, I imagine they have that little device the cops use to measure the density
Yes.
of the tint, right? And I imagine
Yes.
I don't know how that thing works for sure. Or maybe I'll look into it, but I imagine that little device you put it on either side. I'm sure it's shining a light from one side and then measuring it, just like my light meter that I do photography with. Checking to see what f-stop I should set my camera at. It's going to tell me how bright the
Yeah,
light
tint
is.
reader. Yeah,
So
tint reader.
yeah.
Well, we just wanted to show that to you guys and, talk a little bit about it. We've gone over a lot of time, so I thank you so much for each and every one of you and all your comments. Thank you again, Daniel, for coming up on panel and giving us your expertise and being open-minded to other avenues, even though, your professional knowledge and things obviously override, stuff that is not true or whatever. Um, you guys be sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed what we presented. And subscribe if you're not a subscriber.
And
Go
even
back
if you
and do
didn't
all.
enjoy it, hit the like button.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Even if you didn't enjoy it, hit the like button. Or didn't somebody used to say put some DNA on the like button? I remember
Yeah,
hearing
yeah.
a long time ago.
I've heard Dago say that a lot. I like that
Oh,
phrase.
well, hit your put your fingerprint on the like button. There you go. How about that? Your trace DNA on the like button. Well, guys, till next time, time for the maestro to cue the music. So y'all can dance along if you want, or see you around.
Take care, everybody.